Hey guys, Chaps here. You're watching Tac-Com, and this is Gears Feed. Our Gears Feed episode was published a bit early last week due to PAX being held this past weekend. That was done in order to make way for this video, where I'll be covering all the information we've gathered from PAX. We've got quite a bit of information about Arms Race, got to see an entire 50 waves of Horde, so there's a lot to cover. So without further ado, let's hop in and check it out. On Friday, Penny Arcade debuted the new Arms Race mode. What you're seeing in the background here is some of that footage. Arms Race is similar to a team-based version of Master at Arms from Judgment. In this game mode, your team needs to get 3 kills with each weapon before progressing to the next one. As you can see, once your team gets these 3 kills, there's a short waiting period before your weapon changes. It's important to note, though, that you don't have infinite ammo like you do in Judgment. Your ammo will slowly regen over time, but it's still going to run out eventually. All the power weapon locations on map will have ammo boxes, though. The order of weapons is always the same, and goes as follows: Boom Shot, Torque Bow, Drop Shot, Overkill, Marxa, Lancer, Retro Lancer, Hammer Burst, Enforcer, Gnasher, Long Shot, M-Bar, and finally, the Boltok. In general, this is an order of increasing time to kill. I really like what they did with this, as naturally it makes for closer matches. It is essentially a race, but the closer you get to the end, the slower you go. So if you're winning, you may still lead in the end, but the losing team is going to have a decent chance to catch up to you. Overall, I'm extremely pleased with this mode, and I think that I'll play it a lot when I'm just looking for some fun, casual matches. There are, however, 2 things that concern me, and from what I've seen, these 2 items concern many others as well. The first concern I have comes from the melee. In this footage, you may have seen a lot of melees. Granted, these players aren't really that good, but they're still meleeing an awful lot. The problem I see with this is that I don't feel the melee should count towards your kill quota for whatever weapon you're on. Gears Judgment did this right in my opinion, where if you got a melee, it didn't let you progress to the next weapon. This game mode is about being skilled with all of the weapons, not just some of them, so being able to use a melee to cheat your way through a tough weapon just doesn't seem right to me. Being that Judgment didn't have downs, it was quite easy for them not to count melees. I'm not quite sure what TC could do to stop melees from counting, but I'm hoping they implement something in the future update. The other aspect I'm not liking is something that will be very rare to occur, but I strongly believe TC should fix this. Take a look at this clip I have playing here.
It's like a fast-firing, heavy shotgun. It's a power weapon shotgun, actually. Very cool.
See anything wrong? Let's watch it again in slow motion.
Firing, heavy shotgun. Very cool.
What a keen eye will notice is that they skipped from needing 3 kills with the overkill down to 1, without getting any kills with the overkill. What ended up happening is that the drop shot was in the air when the weapon swap occurred. The drop shot then fell and got 2 kills. Because the kills occurred during the overkill's quota, the kills were counted as overkill kills. The issue with this is the same as what I mentioned above with the melees. The game is about being good with all the weapons. This bug, as I'm going to call it, allows you to cheat your way through certain weapons. Granted, yes, this is rare, but I still think it should be fixed. Other than those 2 issues though, this mode looks awesome, and I'm going to have a lot of fun playing, and I can't wait to try it out myself. Okay, now Horde time. There's a lot to talk about in this section, so I'm just going to split it up into a few categories. Let's start off with the basics. Let's take a look at these classes. In Horde 3.0, we have a class system. As I mentioned in the previous video, the classes are not character locked, so you can play whatever character you want with whatever class you want. This image on screen gives you a decent breakdown of what the different classes do. Note that this is translated from a foreign language, so it may not make perfect grammatical sense, but it gets the point across. Classes are selected at the beginning of a match, and cannot be changed mid-match. So I'm guessing that if you really wanted to change class, you could just back out and rejoin your team. Once you select your class, you will have to select a certain set of skills. The selectable skills and the number you can select will be dependent on how leveled you are with a given class. In this PAX footage, the players were all leveled so they could select 3 out of 5 skills each. The most basic of the classes is the Soldier. This is essentially your average class. If you want to play a classless, vanilla Horde, I would recommend just forcing everyone to use this. Up next is the Sniper class. This class should be used by your best marksman. From the gameplay we saw, it seemed like the Sniper made a huge difference if used correctly. Gold Glove was popping heads left and right and seemed to make a really big difference for his team. It seems what most snipers will tend to do is use the Long Shot and the M-Bar, after picking the M-Bar up from one of the fallen Deadeyes. With the perks to cause additional precision damage and explosions upon critical hit kills, this class will end up being one of your heaviest hitting classes. Now, we have the Scout. This is one of the classes that no team should be without. The Scout's primary role is to run around and collect the energy from fallen enemies. I'll talk a little more about energy later, but it's essentially the money that you get from killing enemies. If the Scout picks up the energy, they get double the energy that any other class would receive. It's also important to note that the energy picked up is much greater in the middle of a round, so you don't want to save it all to pick up between rounds. Next up, the Engineer. This is the other main class that you should not go without. As I discuss in a bit, fortifications will play a large role in Horde 3.0. The Engineer will be able to build fortifications at lower cost, and keep them reloaded and repair them at a low cost. Last up, we have the Heavy class. This class spawns with a Retro, Boomshot, and a Boltok. This along with the Sniper class will be your main damage output classes. The main bonus from this class is that they deal additional damage with heavy weapons and turrets, so if you set up any turrets or steal a heavy weapon from an enemy, your best bet is letting a Heavy class player use them. Fortifications work slightly differently in Gears 4 than they did in Gears 3. We still have fences, decoys, sentries, turrets, and all that fun stuff, but we can now build them anywhere and anytime we want. Fortifications are purchased from the fabricator, and are able to be moved around and placed wherever you want. Even once you place them down, you can move them wherever or whenever you want, even mid-round. Purchasing fortifications uses energy, which you get from killing enemies. It appears as lightning bolt icons hovering around the map. As you use the fabricator, you'll be able to purchase higher and higher level items. It starts at level 1 and maxes out at level 4. Fences are just as you remember them in Gears 3. You have spikes, razor wire, stun fences, and then the red laser fences. We didn't get to see much action from the decoys, but they appear similar to those in Gears 3. Sentries have a decent change from the previous games though. They seem much more powerful and play a larger role now. There seems to be two main classes, regular damage dealing ones and the stun sentries. Unlike the previous games, they don't have infinite ammo, so you're going to need to rely on your engineer to keep their health up and their ammo stocked. Just like the fences and decoys, there doesn't seem to be any major changes to the manned turrets, other than the fact that these now use ammo as well. A nice strategy if you're running low on ammo is to have your heavy class using the turret while the engineer is feeding ammo into it. The new weapons locker fortification seems like a nice addition. You can store any weapon you wish in the locker, and it will store the weapon from wave to wave. While in the locker, the weapon will reload and slowly regenerate ammo over time. This seemed particularly useful for the heavy weapons and sniper rifles, so that the player could maintain close to full ammo at all times. Alright, now onto the weapons. There's not much to cover here, but there are a few interesting points. First up, the Markso was finally confirmed. It's known as the Markso Mark I. It's an unscoped version of the Markso with a faster rate of fire than its Judgment counterpart. But don't worry, this one's a pickup weapon, not a starter. Next up, the Enforcer. As many people speculated, this weapon has now been confirmed as a starting weapon. It has very minimal range, but will put out a lot of damage up close. This is what most people have speculated for a month or so now, so there really isn't too much to add here. In the Horde gameplay on Saturday night, we finally got our first look at the Salvo rocket launcher in action. Here it is, let's take a look. This gun looks awesome, but it's still unknown if this weapon will be available in versus multiplayer. There wasn't too much to share here, but we did get a couple nice first looks at some weapons. The last thing I wanted to hit on in this video were the enemies. Earlier this week we saw the new heavy class swarm enemies in the Horde teaser. These are called the Scions and act very similar to the Boomer class enemies. Oh, and they can do this.
Playing,
right?
Is that they're able to get this far on.
No.
Squish your head.
Next up, let's take a look at the DB shock trackers. These guys play a very similar role to tickers. They will roll up near you and detonate. They also seem to do a pretty nice job against fences and fortifications. If you kill one of them, they have a chance of dropping a shock grenade for you. This is a new type of grenade that sends out an electrical shockwave. It's probably quite effective against DBs. Here we also got a first look at the DB Sentinel. This enemy is essentially the same as a Guardian, but this one carries the Salvo rocket launcher. There wasn't too much information about these smaller enemies, but now let's take a look at the bosses. Only 2 bosses were shown this weekend, but we've been told there's plenty more at launch. They don't want to spoil everything for us now, right? The first boss we saw was the Carrier. This is a very large and powerful, but slow, enemy with large fists that will smash anything in its path, and will probably destroy most of your fortifications. It is slow, however, so it doesn't seem like it'll be too tough to stay away from. If you are at range though, you'll need to watch out for the Cankers. When a Carrier opens its chest, it reveals a vulnerable area, similar to the Lambent Berserker in Gears 3. In this vulnerable chest, it stores a pack of Cankers that will launch across the map. These things are similar to fast-moving, small nemesis, and will leave a toxic pool on the ground when they land. The other boss that we saw this weekend was the Snatcher. This was a really cool boss, and seems to be the tougher of the two. Though I was a bit surprised the teams playing seemed to think that this was the easier of the bosses. This creature sits up high and has a weak underbelly, sort of like a Reaver. Besides the crushing power of its legs, it has 2 main abilities. At range, it shoots an acid spear type thing. This shot will cause a lot of damage if you're caught off guard. The other ability is what I think was a fan favorite. It can eat you. If you get too close, this thing will open its mouth and swallow you whole. When you're inside, your teammates are able to shoot the belly in order to free you. However, if they don't shoot fast enough, you'll be consumed and die. We also know that there will be a boss wave featuring the Kestrel, which is essentially the DB helicopter. However, we haven't gotten much to see of this outside of the trailers. These are some pretty awesome bosses, and I can't wait to see what else they have in store for us at launch. And that brings us to the end of the video. There was a lot of great information to come out of PAX about Horde and arms race. This video should hit all the main points, but there's still a ton of information out there. Be sure to check out the video on demand versions of some of our streams, check the forums, and check the Gears Reddit page for some great discussion. And don't forget, we'll be hosting a live stream tonight, September 5th, with a more in-depth discussion of all this news. Be sure to stop by and check it out. If you can't catch it live though, look for a video on demand version on our YouTube channel shortly after. As always, to make sure you stay up to date with all of our content, be sure to follow us on Twitter and subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, please comment, like, and share. To stay up to date with all of your Gears news, be sure to follow @GalFeed, where you'll continue to see real-time updates covering everything and everything Gears of War. This has been an episode of Gears Feed on Tac-Com, and until next time, thanks for watching.